Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Felicity Saves the Day. Chapter 2, Faithful Friends. The serene and sunny summer days flowered by as smoothly as a river. By the end of July, Felicity was completely settled into the rhythm of life on the plantation. She often thought of her father and Ben and her dear friend Elizabeth back home in Williamsburg. She missed them not because she was lonely, but because she wanted to share with them all the good times and quiet delights of summer at Kings Creek Plantation. One hot afternoon, Felicity and William were playing by the river in Grandfather's boat, which was pulled away partway on the shore. William was pretending to row. The family had rowed upriver to a barbecue and boat race the day before, and William was now determined to be a boatman. Felicity had a shell full of soapy water. She dipped a hollow reed in it and blew bubbles, and then watched the bubbles drift lazily up toward the clouds. The sun was as heavy as a weight on Felicity's back, but she had taken off her shoes and stockings so she could dangle her legs over the edge of the boat and dip her toes into the river water, and her wide-brimmed straw had shaded her face, so Felicity felt perfectly comfortable. Nan appeared at the top of the bluff. She waved and called out. She ran to them. "Lissy, William, 'tis time for dinner." William quickly climbed out of the boat. He was always interested in dinner, but Felicity sighed as she pulled her feet out of the water. She was always sorry to go inside. "Lissy," giggled Nan when she got to the boat. "Gracious me, hurry and put on your shoes and stockings. Mr. and Mrs. Wentworth are here for a visit. It wouldn't be proper for a guest to see you bare-legged." Felicity sighed again as she put on her shoes and stockings. "I wish we had no guests today," she said. "I'd rather stay out of doors." There were very often guests for dinner. Ladies and gentlemen from the neighboring plantations came to call on Mother. She had grown up here on Grandfather's plantation, and all her old friends were eager to see her. Felicity liked it very much when families with children visited. All the children had dinner by themselves, separately from the adults. They ate their dinner quickly and were free to go out of doors. They went for walks or played battledore and shuttlecock on the lawn. When there was no children visiting, Felicity ate with the adults. Nan and William ate in the kitchen. It was considered a privilege to be allowed to join the adults in the dining room, but did not feel like a privilege when Mrs. Wentworth was one of the dinner guests. Felicity feared it would be a dull afternoon. And indeed, Mrs. Wentworth had a great deal to say at dinner time. "Well," she exclaimed, "when I heard that Governor Dunmore and his family had left Williamsburg, I quite nearly went into spasms. Governor Dunmore was sent to the colonies by the king himself to govern us. If he must flee the palace, none of us is safe. We shall all be murdered in our bed by these wild patriots. They are disloyal to our king." Did she not hear about the gunpowder plot? She turned to her husband, who appeared to be dozing. "Don't you agree, Mr. Wentworth?" she asked sharply. "What? Oh, yes, indeed, my dear," said Mr. Wentworth. "Think of it," Mrs. Wentworth went on. "The governor and his family were forced to stay on a ship in Norfolk. I hear Lady Dunmore and the children are now sailing safely home to England." "Well," Mrs. Wentworth's plumpish face was pink as a boiled ham. "I'm simply scandalized. I'm glad you're far away from Williamsburg this summer, my dear Mrs. Merriman. And your sweet dear children, do you not fear for your husband, and in your condition too?" Felicity saw her mother blush. "Mother was expecting a baby in the winter." "My dear Mrs. Wentworth," Mother said calmly, "do not upset yourself. 'Tis true the governor and his family left Williamsburg. Relations between the governor and the colonists are no longer friendly. But 'twas a peaceful departure. No one wished the governor or his family any harm. As for my husband," Mother smiled, "I've no fear of him. He is a sensible, peaceful man. He keeps a cool head." Mrs. Wentworth waggled her head. "Well," she said, "all this trouble began in November when those hot-headed patriots threw crates of tea into this very river, just down the road in Yorktown. It was then that so many merchants decided to stop selling tea in their shops. They stopped because they were disloyal to pay the king's tax on it. Scandalous, if you ask me." No one had asked Miss Wentworth. In fact, no one had said anything at all. Felicity's mother and grandfather were awkwardly silent because Felicity's father was one of the merchants who had stopped selling tea in a store. He had stopped because he believed the king's tax was unfair, not because he was disloyal. Felicity glanced at grandfather. She knew he thought father was wrong not to sell tea, but grandfather was too polite to say anything that would make mother uncomfortable in front of the Wentworths. "'Tis a good thing Ben's not here," Felicity thought. Ben was a patriot, heart and soul. He'd surely say something that would send Mrs. Wentworth into spasms. The room was hot and stuffy, and Mrs. Wentworth's words only made it worse. Felicity knew she should sit still and appear to be interested in the conversation, even though she did not like what Mrs. Wentworth was saying. But her feet were jumpy and her legs itched. There was sand stuck in her stockings. Felicity put her hands through the slits in her gown and petticoats as if she were reaching into her pockets. She slipped her hands past her pockets, untied her garters, and put them in her pockets. Then she jiggled her legs till her stockings fell down around her ankles. Oh, now that felt better. "Gracious," said Mrs. Wentworth suddenly. Felicity realized Mrs. Wentworth was looking at her. "Felicity," Mrs. Wentworth puffed, "you're as twitchy as a cat's tail. What ails you, child?" Quickly, Felicity put her hands on the table. "Well, Grandfather rescued her. May I ask you ladies to excuse the gentleman," he said. "Mr. Wentworth had brought some horses for me to look at, and I would like Felicity to join us. I shall need her advice. She has quite the eye for a good horse." "Oh, yes," said Mother. Mrs. Wentworth nodded. Felicity was so grateful to be going, she forgot about her stockings. They flopped around her ankles as she followed the gentleman out of doors and down the path to the pasture behind the stable. The sun was scorching hot. Still, it felt wonderful to be out of doors. Felicity took a deep breath. She loved the stable smell of horses and sun-warmed hay. She stood next to Grandfather and looked over the pasture fence at the 5 horses Mr. Wentworth had brought. Most of the horses stood quietly in the shade of the stable, nibbling in the grass. Felicity shaded her eyes to better see one horse that was at the far end of the pasture, trotting restlessly along the horses. "These are cart horses," Mr. Wentworth said to Grandfather. "Some of them are handsome enough to pull your riding chair. The others are steady and strong. You won't find a better horse than one of these to pull a farm wagon." "They appear to be in fine condition," said Grandfather. "Let's have a closer look." He opened the gate and led Felicity and Mr. Wentworth into the pasture. The stable boys looped ropes around the horses' necks and led them to Grandfather one by one. Grandfather inspected the horses carefully. He ran his hands down their legs and looked at their eyes and teeth to be sure the horses were healthy. Suddenly there was an uproar. The horse at the far end of the pasture whinnied, kicked up its heels, and ran wildly. It would not let the stable boy near enough to put the rope around its neck. Mr. Wentworth shook his head. "That horse was passed along me in a swamp, and I took her, for she's a thoroughbred," he said. "She's handsome and fast as wind, but she's very skittish. I fear she was once badly mistreated. She trusts no one." The horse rode up and Felicity gasped. She slipped past Grandfather, ran toward the horse as far as she could. "Stop!" Mr. Wentworth shouted. "Stop! That horse is dangerous." The horse was skinny and scruffy and so covered with dust that her coat was the color of mud. She tossed her head and danced from one side to side. Felicity made herself slow to a walk as she came near. Her heart thudded in her chest so that she could hardly breathe. "Penny," Felicity said softly. "Penny, it's me. It's Felicity. You remember me? You remember me, don't you, Penny? Don't you, my girl?" Felicity stood still and held out her hands. "Come to me, Penny," she said. "Come, my fine one." The horse nickered. She took one step and then two toward Felicity. Then very gently she nudged Felicity's shoulder with her nose. Felicity's eyes held happy tears. She reached up and put her arms around Penny's neck. "I knew we'd be together again someday." Felicity turned and slowly walked back toward Grandfather. Penny followed close behind her. The men stood by the stable, watching silent. Felicity smiled at Grandfather. "This is my horse, Grandfather," Felicity said simply. "This is Penny." Grandfather's gray eyes shone with happiness. He cleared his throat, and then he said to Mrs. Wentworth, "I'll take this horse along with the others if you be so kind." He shook hands with Miss Wentworth to seal the bargain. "I've never seen such a thing in all my days," said Mr. Wentworth. "It does my heart good to know the horse has found a home." He turned to Felicity. "You're a brave young lady," he said. "You deserve a horse as spirited as this." "She does indeed," said Grandfather. "She does indeed." That night, Felicity took a paper from the leather pocketbook Father had given her. She wrote a letter to Father and then to tell him about Penny. She knew Ben would be happy because he had shared her secret about taming Penny last autumn. That had been the beginning of her friendship with Ben. Then Felicity wrote, July 30th, 1775. My dear friend Elizabeth, I pray this letter finds you in good health and good spirits. Such happiness is mine. Today my dear horse Penny is returned to me. Grandfather has purchased her. I am to care for her while I am here. All this afternoon I have spent with her, brushing and currying her. She is thin, but in good health. My joy is twice as great because I know you share with me. You hope for Penny's return as much as I did, and never let me lose faith. Tonight my heart is full of happiness and full of love for you. I am and shall be forever your faithful friend, Felicity Merriman. That's the end of that chapter. See you later.